Luca, Ray, Joy. Here it comes! Is that too much?
I really felt like I should re-upload this with some edits, so here they are.
What's up, fruity bitches? I've been thinking, and honestly, my head is spinning. You'll hear people say things like, "This is the best economy ever." You'll see politicians point to the charts. GDP is up. Unemployment is down. Well, everyone, here I am making a video about how easy it is to misunderstand statistics, and I have a bit of egg on my face because I misunderstood some statistics when I said that unemployment is low. We'll dive deeper into how I made this mistake when we talk about all the ways that statistics can be misunderstood. But yes, to be clear, unemployment is actually up right now. Special thanks to the commenter who pointed that out, and sorry to anyone who saw the original video where I made this mistake uncorrected. Markets are strong, and meanwhile, my wallet is on life support. Groceries are expensive. Rent is insane, healthcare hurts, people feel stretched thin even when they're working full-time. So what gives? Are people lying? Are the numbers fake? Probably not. I'm sure you've heard the line, facts don't care about your feelings. Sure, but here's the part that gets left out. Statistics are not created by robots, they're created by people. And that means the way data is gathered, grouped, and framed can make statistics technically accurate, but still not very useful. Sure, GDP might be up, but your cost of living is still crushing. Unemployment might be low
In comparison to the COVID numbers.
but wages are still failing to keep up with inflation. Those numbers aren't wrong, they're just incomplete. They describe the system, not necessarily your life, and that's the point. There are a lot of ways that statistics can fail to properly represent reality or be useful. Averages hide extremes. What's being measured isn't always what matters. What time frame this data is coming from. Per capita versus total count, that can matter too. Definitions can drift over time. And one of the biggest reasons of all, categories are subjective. As I mentioned earlier, unemployment is actually high and I said it was low. I'm not 100% sure why I thought that was the case, but I'm betting it was these two things right here. I think 1, I heard the White House messaging about job growth, or 2, I was thinking about the time frame between the COVID high unemployment and now. Either way, saying unemployment is low is not representative. Where you draw the line changes the outcome. So let's take a real-world example and walk through it slowly. The right is more violent. Now listen, if that's a statistic that you want to cite, that's fine. But here's the reality. That claim will mostly get nods from people who already agree with it, who are on your side. People on the right, they'll tend to scoff. And no, it's not because they can't handle the facts. It has to do with how categories were built. This isn't about proving my worldview, so maybe going through all of this, you'll develop better categories and they'll show the same results. But either way, let's analyze how categories are established for this statistic. First question, what counts as violence? Does it include destruction of property? The next question is, what is political violence? Does someone simply have to be on the right or on the left? Or do they have to commit violence in service of a political worldview? For example, if someone who supports Bernie Sanders gets into a bar fight because someone slaps their girlfriend's ass, that's not political violence just because he's wearing a Bernie shirt. Intent matters. So, we're probably talking about violence in furtherance of an ideology, not just personal behavior. Okay, fair enough. But now, here comes the tricky part. If one category is defined very broadly while the other is very narrow, then we can all guess which one will catch more incidents. So how broad should these categories be? What motivating principles should fit under each side? Pro-life beliefs are commonly associated with the right. Environmental consciousness is more commonly associated with the left. Obviously, the overwhelming majority of people on both sides are peaceful, but when these principles go to the extremes, you get things like bombings at abortion clinics or eco-terrorism. Here's the issue. Pro-life extremists are almost always labeled right-wing, while acts of eco-terrorism are often placed in a separate category, instead of being labeled left-wing. It's a categorical choice, not necessarily objectively right or wrong. So think about it, how many people on the right or left have to hold a principle for that principle to be considered related to that side? If a belief is held by 15% of left-leaning people and 10% of right-leaning people, is that a left-leaning belief? Does the majority of that side have to support that belief? Is it a cultural association? Perhaps it's historical alignment that matters. There's no obvious answer, but the answer you pick changes the statistics. Here is where lived experience comes in. In my experience, the average conservative is not a racist. So race-based violence doesn't automatically feel like a right-wing issue to me. But if your lived experience is that many conservatives around you are racist, then this connection might make perfect sense to you. Neither perspective is easily proven right or wrong. So here's another question. If white supremacy is to be treated as right-wing ideology, should black supremacy be treated as a left-wing one? Right now, those both tend to be categorized differently, often with racial extremism separated out rather than folded into either the left or the right. Again, that's another choice. What about religion? Traditional Christianity is often associated with the right, so when violence is committed in its name, it's frequently labeled right-wing. Is violence committed out of hatred for Christianity then left-wing? Traditional Islam can also be socially conservative, especially around things like gender roles. So if violence is committed in that context, is it right-wing or religious extremism? Should religious violence be its own category entirely? Or should it overlap with political ideology? Can this violence be put under both? And then there's mental illness. Was the attack driven by ideology, with mental illness lowering inhibitions? Or was it mental illness first, with ideology layered on top? Depending on how you answer that, the incident ends up in a different column. When I look back at recent history, public unrest, politically motivated attacks, vandalism tied to activism, polls showing different levels of approval for violence, the statistic the right is more violent just doesn't seem representative to me. It's not necessarily fake, but incomplete, and I suspect that a lot of conservatives would feel the same way, because they would draw categories differently. Now, maybe you look at all of this and still think the current framework makes perfect sense. That's fine. Seriously, what matters isn't which conclusion you land on, it's whether you understand how you landed there. I'm not trying to prove that the right is less violent. That's not the important part. What's important is being able to look at statistics and ask, is this useful? Is it representative? What assumptions went into building it? Because that's how you become informed. That's how you become more persuasive. That's how you get closer to the truth. If you're a hardcore lefty and this pushes you to build the strongest possible case for why the right is truly more violent, power to you. I lean right, and I always mention my affiliation, not out of allegiance, but transparency about my perspective. My only allegiance is to the truth. So question the numbers, question the categories, figure out why you believe what you believe, and to all my fruity bitches out there, right and left, love ya. Stay safe out there.
We may be twisted, won't deny. Gotta laugh or we'll all cry. We don't need no PC snitches. We just wanna hang with our fruity bitches.